Hi, this is Esther with Discover Your Origins. In this video, I'm going to go over some research I've done on William Eaton and his wife, Susan, and I did a bit of a deep dive. And so I'm starting here with William because when you try to research a female in the early 1800s, you have to research the men in their lives. And in this case, William Eaton. So let me scroll down and show you who I'm talking about. So William Eaton and Susan Elizabeth M. Smith, and we're not really sure that her last name or maiden name is Smith. That's a research project for another day. But William and Susan are in the 1850 U.S. Census. So let me show you what we know about them. So William and Susan are in Chambers County, Alabama in 1850. I'll show you where they are on the census here. Okay, so the handwriting is a little bit hard to read because the ink pen was a little bit faint and the ink skipped a little bit, it looks like. But here's William Eaton, and he's born in England, and then his wife Susan and William J., Sarah A., and Martha J. are the children. Susan and the children are all born in Georgia. And there is a bit of an age gap between William and Susan. William is 58 and Susan is 36. But this is what we know about William and Susan. We've got to try to explain that age gap, because could she be a second wife? Is she some other family member? You know, the 1850 U.S. Census doesn't give relationships, but I've done quite a bit of research on the descendants of this couple, and the documentation that I have found does suggest that Susan is the biological mother of these children. There's still a little bit of a question, but I feel reasonably confident of that. And so here we have William and Susan. And Susan, you can see here, is born from 1814 to 1817. She does appear in the 1860 U.S. Census, so I've got those connected to this particular profile in Georgia. So that means her birth range is 1814 to 1817. If we do the math, that means that she would be 3 to 6 years old in 1820. So she should be with her biological family in the 1820 U.S. Census. So we've got to try and find who that person can be and see if there's a female child under the age of 10 in the 1820 U.S. Census. So let's go back to the William profile. All right, so she wouldn't be married to William until later. Their oldest child, at least as far as we know, is William Jasper, born in 1840 in Georgia. So that means they might have been married in 1839. Possibly earlier if there were other children that died, but that's what we can surmise from what we know. There have been some people who've done some searching in Georgia, myself included, and there is only one marriage record before 1840 for William Eaton. And I've got it here in my ancestry tree as a record hint. I haven't attached it to my tree because I don't know that this is the same William Eaton yet. You can see here we have a William Eaton and Susannah Galley. There's a couple of things that are really important about this marriage record. One, it gives us a potential location in Georgia, Carroll County. Another thing is a handwriting analysis, because we need to make sure what this maiden name actually is. Let me zoom in a little bit closer. So when we look at this name, to me, it looks like Susannah Galley. You can see that the A in the last name, it's open a little bit on the top, but it looks pretty well like an A. And if you look at the name Susannah and you look at the A's in Susannah, you can see that there's some similarity. If we slide over and look at Eaton, you can see the A's are very similar. And so to me, that definitely looks like an A. There is some I's on this page for William. You can see that it's a straight line with a dot in both places. And that is not over here. There's no stray dots. There's nothing. It's just an A. So when I interpret this handwriting, I see Susannah Galley. And the reason this is a concern is that when you look in the census, you would think that there would be a potential father with the last name of Galley. So if she marries in 1833, she may have very well have been with her biological father still in 1830. And so that's what we want to look for, is someone with the last name of Galley. However, if you do a search of the 1830 U.S. Census in Carroll County, Georgia, there are no men with the last name of Galley. There is, however, a man with the last name of Gilly. So some people have thought that that name on that marriage record is actually Gilly. And we have to be really careful, because now we're assuming something. We're assuming that the person who created that record wrote the name wrong or recorded it wrong. It does happen. We have to be really careful with that kind of an assumption, because we have to have some other evidence to correlate with the assumption. And right now we don't have anything other than that last name of Galley. But when you look in the census, there are men with the last name of Gilly. So this second profile was created for Susannah Gilley to match that marriage record with the last name that doesn't quite match up to the marriage record. And here we have that marriage record date and place connected to our William Eaton. And so let's go look and see who they think the biological father is. Okay, so they think the biological father is Charles Henry Gilley. He is in Carroll County, Georgia. He has some other children listed here. I'm not quite sure if all of these are his children. That's still work in progress. So he's in the right place. His last name is sort of right for a match, but we're still making an assumption. So there's several assumptions that we're making here. One, that William Eaton on the marriage record in Carroll County, Georgia, is the same William Eaton in Chambers County, Georgia. Two, that Susannah Gilley is the same person that's on the marriage record as Susannah Galley. And three, that Susannah Gilley or Galley is the daughter of Charles Henry Gilley. So we have to find evidence that all of those things, those assumptions, are true. Right now they're just assumptions. We have to have documentary evidence. So if Susannah Gilley or Susan Eaton was born 1814 to 1817, she should be on the 1820 U.S. Census. And I found the 1820 U.S. Census for Charles Henry Gilley. So let's go take a look at it. The 1820 U.S. Census does not have the children listed. It just has numbers and the head of household. All right, let me zoom in here. All right, and so he's right here. Charles Gilley. This first column are for males in the household. The second column is for females in the household. And then these other columns are for enslaved individuals. There are some male children in the household. And then Charles is this last little tick mark here that I'm circling, around 45 years old or younger. And then in the female column here, this first column is for children under the age of 10. And you can see that it's blank. There is a female that's about 16 years old or younger, and then a female that's about 45 years old. So I did a little extraction here so you can see it a little bit easier. The household here. And so there are no daughters under the age of 10 in the household. And you would expect there to be a daughter there that is under a 10 if he had a daughter of the age that Susannah is supposed to have been. So that is really one big negative against the theory. She should be there. And so it suggests that Charles Gilley is not the father of Susannah Galley. Now, I did some additional analysis. If Susannah Galley, she should be in the 1830 census as well. If she was born 1814 to 1817, she should be around 15 years old in the 1830 census. A girl of that age could possibly not be at home. She could be in another household, possibly with another family, relatives. I don't know if at that time women would be hired out as teenagers to go work somewhere else. I suppose it's possible. Long story short, she should be in the 1830 U.S. Census, and in the 1830 census in Carroll County, Georgia, there are two Charles Gilleys. So there's this Charles Gilley Jr., and just above him, there's a Charles Gilley Sr. And when you do the extraction with this count here, there's only two people in the Charles Gilley Jr. household. There's a male and there's a female. So I have that on my report here. There's one male that's age 50 to 60 and one female that's 30 to 40. And then in the Charles Gilley Sr., so if perhaps she was living with her grandfather, she could be counted in that household. And you can see there's one male child, 5 to 10, and there's a male that's 80 to 90, and then a female that's 30 to 40. There's two. So there's not a female in the right age range in the 1830 U.S. Census in either of those households. Like I said, that doesn't completely eliminate the possibility, but this census combined with the 1820 census suggests that Charles Gilley did not have a daughter of the right age to be Susannah Galley or Gilley. So let me go back here. So now what's next? Because we still need to do some other documentary research. We need to see if William Eaton and Charles Gilley had any association with each other. They're not that far apart in age, actually. William was born about 1792 and Charles is 1783. So Charles is about 10 years older. So they would be peers. The William Eaton that's in the marriage record, that's in this marriage record, most likely did know Charles Gilley. But we can't tie this William Eaton to the one in Chambers County, Alabama yet. There's no evidence of any kind to connect them. So that's a bit of a question still. I have found evidence with tax records to show they probably had an association or knew each other. But like I said, we can't connect it to the William Eaton in Chambers County at this point in time. So the next thing after exhausting the documentary research is to then look at DNA. There is a suggestion through Ancestry Through Lines that Susan is Susannah Galley, the daughter of Charles Henry Gilley. But the DNA evidence is fairly weak. On the surface, it looks really good, but as you dig a little deeper, it's a little bit weak. So I'm going to do a deep dive on that at some point. But I just thought I would explain the census analysis that I did. I have an entire report that I've written up on this that I'm going to eventually upload to those profiles in Family Search so that people know my reasoning and they have all of the source records and background information of why the connection is suspect. So look forward to that. At some point, I'm going to upload that. I'm not sure when, but you can read my blog where I will have a blog article about this research that I've done. So I hope that it was helpful. Researching women in the early 1800s is a real challenge, and trying to identify their maiden name is extraordinarily difficult. And so we have to be really careful not to make assumptions and to exhaust documentary research and then look at the DNA. So until next time, we'll see you later.